Hello everybody, we are back and doing a follow-up to the previous video covering the Arctic figure from Zilla made from him specifically, and we're here to cover the painted version as promised. I know I'm a little bit late, but I was busy printing all the sets for Ghidorah and multiple things, but now I finally have some time free. Now let's get into the video. Information for the pre-order painted version with exclusive extra things. It has 43 points of articulation. Pre-orders are limited to 50. It's painted by a professional. It comes with a helicopter, a taxi, a pile of fish, a trading car, and it's at 13 inches long, I believe. It's in size with Monster Arts, meaning it's compatible with other Monster Arts figures, and I'm sure with Haya and others, It's meant to be in general with any 6-inch figures and above, I guess. One of those includes a prototype version he made for himself. I think it was painted. It came with everything that I mentioned, and the articulation was already there. You didn't have to assemble anything or paint anything yourself, but it was expensive, I believe. Like this painted version, it's more on the higher end. Don't quote me on this, but I believe it's more expensive because it comes assembled and painted. Pretty much you don't have to do anything. For everybody else that was complaining that it was very difficult to assemble and just paint the figure, there's other versions. The original release was aiming for $200 unpainted, but he did make a few changes to a different release. A lot of people thought it was very expensive and just couldn't afford it, right? So he came out with a cheaper version, $100 less. It's still unpainted, but the only difference is it doesn't come assembled as the unpainted version, meaning it's only $100, but you do have to now assemble and paint this figure yourself. That's why it's at $100. Now, assembling the figure is not as simple as you would think. First of all, he doesn't use traditional ball joints as articulation. He uses a different method for his articulation, which still works a lot better, I believe, than using ball joints and other things. But it can be very complicated if you don't know anything about it. So you do have to use sometimes some wire or some strings. It depends. There is information about this in his website. You can check that out, how to assemble your figure step by step. You do have to buy a few tools, but eventually this method gives you better articulation, very smooth, instead of dealing with the ball joints that can eventually rub and just break on you, which is extremely difficult. So there's two sides, right? There's the traditional articulation with ball joints. It can be a hassle. It can lead to breaking some parts, or you can go with his method, which also is a lot simple, but it is kind of difficult if you don't know how to tie everything together step by step. And yeah, you can eventually end up with a figure that has no articulation if you don't know what you're doing with your tools and model kit. My thoughts on this figure: it looks absolutely fantastic and phenomenal, full of details everywhere. This is what a Monster Arts figure would look like, I believe. The articulation is beyond anything. Obviously, it looks very smooth. It works to perfection. The way it moves, just really good, almost like snake-like articulation, what you usually find on Monster Arts. For any Godzilla fan out there, or if you grew up watching this movie, it's definitely a must pick up. I know it's expensive, but you do have to understand that all the time that goes into working the articulation, cutting out these segments, painting it, doing multiple things, it costs a lot of money, and resin is not cheap, as I already mentioned in the previous video. There's always going to be both sides, and I rather not argue with people that don't really work with resin and 3D printing. They're just not going to understand the method and the hard work that goes into those machines, and to learning how to support your figures, how to do multiple things. It's a lot of work. It seems easy, but it's not. It really isn't, especially if it's one person. I believe it's a single person for Articfigures, and I feel his pain. Honestly, it can be really stressful doing multiple things at the same time. It can be overwhelming. This is something that usually works better with a team of 5 people. For a first Godzilla figure, super phenomenal. I cannot wait to see what else he has in store for us in the future. Now, I want to talk about a different topic that recently has happened to him, and I'll just get into it and give you guys my thoughts. Recently on his website, he launched the files for all the past figures that he has done with Jurassic World, like the V-Rex, T-Rex, and other famous dinosaurs, right? The problem with this is that some people took advantage of his good kind gestures that he has done for the people, right? Making his hard work, his exclusive designs available for the public. And what happened? Some people began to download the files and eventually went onto the market and sold them as if they were the original creators, taking advantage of his own work without even giving him credit, without even being truthful to the public. So people that bought the files from him on his website were very greedy, trying to make money for themselves, going to Facebook, going to other websites and pages out there claiming to be the original creators, selling them for themselves, trying to get that cash from him. You know, they are profiting off of his hard work, and that's totally unfair. He made a few posts warning people not to buy anything from those individuals. Obviously, they are trying to scam people, they are trying to do something that isn't illegal, and just very scummy at the end of the day. So don't support that type of work. If you see anything like that, report it. As he said, always buy from the original creator. Now, the only way, and I've always mentioned this, that you can honestly sell files is if you get permission from the original creator. You get down to a deal, maybe you cut it 50-50, or it depends, right? You give them a certain amount of money and you get to keep a certain amount of money, but it all has to be worked out with the original creator. Some people do eventually do that. Like if you buy files, you can get down to business with the original creator, talk to him. If he is willing to, you know, give you permission and get commission for a certain percentage, then yeah, it's totally fair. But if he never gave you permission, it is totally not okay to be doing this. And that's why when a lot of people ask me through messages, why am I not selling the Godzilla files? Why am I not selling my files? Because that's the fear that I have. There are a lot of people out there that will not respect what you mention in order to, you know, download your files out there. You know, it's only for personal use. You are not allowed to sell or benefit from any type of sales. But of course, there's always greedy people out there that will take advantage out of this, trying to make money. And a lot of people have asked me as well for the Ghidorah heads. Right now, currently, there's only a different individual out there that has access to the Ghidorah files, and I really hope he doesn't do the same thing. That's why it's a 50-50 chance. You either take the chance of selling it with a good heart, you know, trying to give access to your files, your designs to the public, you know, as a good gesture. But of course, there's always going to be the other side that want to market this as their own designs, benefit from everything. Now that he's making his past files and designs available to the public, this makes me believe that eventually, when he has made his sales from Godzilla, this Godzilla that we have seen right now, I think that he's going to make that available to the public eventually, and I'm very excited for that. Honestly, I really want to purchase that. I really want to print this myself, and if it's a possibility, I want to talk to him, because I feel like modifying this Godzilla to have ball joints. I feel like I can kind of do that and work things myself. Before anything, I obviously need permission from his end to give me the green light. That's why I really want to get in contact with him via email or Instagram if that's possible. Down the future, I really think that I can do this myself. As always, this is for private and personal use, as he mentioned, as I mentioned always. And we'll just have to see what happens in the future. Let me know what you think about this. What other monster would you really like him to do next? he has already nailed down a really awesome Godzilla that hasn't been done with Articulation. So what other monster would you like to see from the MonsterVerse, Godzilla, just in general, right? What monster hasn't been really touched, and how much would you like to see with accessories and other stuff, you know?